Welcome back to another Rose City Reptiles video. I'm Joey, this is Rose City Reptiles, and in today's video we're going to go over the top 5 things that you need to do in order to be ready for your baby Tegu. We're going to talk about enclosure size, lighting, substrate, hides, and diet. So we're going to cover everything. By the end of this video, you will be ready for your baby Tegu. Let's get started. First thing that we're going to talk about is the enclosure size. So one thing I just want to start off the video by saying is that I'm going to be sharing what I do. Now, I have raised lots of baby Tegus and I've done it in many different ways. So there's definitely more than one way to do this. Hopefully this video gives you some great ideas and also can inspire your own ideas. So when we're talking about a baby Tegu, one thing to keep in mind is that they grow extremely fast, or they can. They also can grow slow. There's rates in how fast the baby Tegu can grow, but it's always best to just be prepared because most of them do grow very fast. So there's nothing wrong with using a stock tank, a tote. There's all types of ways to set up an affordable way to raise your baby Tegu up because it's just gonna grow out of it anyways. But I'm gonna show you the size I recommend is what's right behind me. This right here is a 4x2 and will last your Tegu until it can move into its adult size enclosure. But there's many different ways to get this footprint, you know, like I mentioned, totes and troughs and different things that you can build tops for. There's a lot of ways. I have videos showing some of those other things, but what I recommend starting your baby Tegu in is a 4x2. A lot of people have the 36x18, the 40-gallon breeder size, and those can work if you're getting a fresh hatchling, but even a hatchling is going to outgrow that so quickly that you might as well just start in something a little bit bigger. So that's my recommendation as far as enclosure size goes. But now it's time to get inside the enclosure. Okay, so now inside the enclosure, let's go ahead and talk about lighting real quick, because that is a very important part of being ready for your baby Tegu. So for UVB, currently what I'm using is the Arcadia, and this is a 12% bulb. I recommend getting the Arcadia 10% bulb, but some of that will depend on the height of your enclosure. So, but this is a great brand. I get all my lighting from lightyourreptiles.com. So Arcadia, there's ReptiSun, there's Mega Ray, there's lots of different brands that will work great for you, but Arcadia is the one that I'm currently using. A really important part of being ready for your baby Tegu is not just the lighting, but the actual fixture that your UVB goes in. As you see, this Arcadia fixture has a really nice reflective surface above it. That is going to greatly enhance the amount of UVB that comes down from that bulb. So if you have just a regular fixture that doesn't have that reflective layer, do not use that fixture. Most of your UVB is just going to be wasted. That reflectiveness really helps direct that UVB down towards the Tegu. So that's a very important thing. You can't not have that. You have to have a nice fixture as well as your UVB bulb in there. So you definitely need to get a fixture with a nice reflective cover on there. And then the next thing that we're going to talk about is their heat. Your actual heat bulb. This is the bulb that is going to help you reach those surface basking temperatures, which we'll talk about next. Here's the bulb that I'm currently using. It's a PAR 30 short neck halogen 60 watt floodlight. I buy these on Amazon. You can find them at Lowe's or Home Depot. Maybe not this exact one, but the main thing you want to take from this is you want one that can be used for outdoor, and you want a halogen, and you want it to be a floodlight, not a spotlight. Those can burn your animals. You want it to be a floodlight. So, and the way I have these hooked up is they're really nice bulb. I have them hooked up to a fixture at the top of the enclosure, and then that gets plugged into a dimmer. So these are dimmable bulbs. So the way I have mine hooked up is I have them hooked up to a dimmer, and that way I can adjust the dimmer to get the temperatures where I need them to be. If you don't want to use a dimmer, you just want to plug it in, then you're going to have to play around with your wattage of bulb until you find one that gets the temperature right where you need it. You can also raise and lower your basking surface to kind of get closer or further away to the bulb, and that can help get your temperatures where they need to be. This right here is a temp gun. This is what you're going to use to check your temperatures and make sure they're right. This is something everybody needs to be ready for their baby tegus. So what this does is it reads the surface temperature, not the ambient. So now when we're talking basking temperatures, there is a range that is acceptable. I like to make sure mine are right around 110 degrees for the basking temperature. That can vary a bit. You can go up to 120, you can go as low as 100 degrees, but just understand that that temperature is directly connected to their appetite. And it's also very important not to just go off a guide, but also to set up your enclosure and then observe your animal. If you see your Tegu basking for hours and not doing much else, then there's a good chance that you need to just raise it up 5 degrees and then see how the Tegu responds after that. If they're constantly hiding and not wanting to come out and trying to stay on the cool end or underneath the substrate, it's possible that your temperature is a little bit too high. So it's very important to use these videos and resources as kind of like your guide, but to not forget to observe your animal and make adjustments as needed. But regardless, this is a tool that you're going to need to get that surface temperature of about 110 degrees right here on the stone. Okay, so we've talked about enclosure size and lighting and temperature, but now let's go ahead and get into the substrate. So with Tegus, there are many different substrates that can work. There's Repti-Chick, there's mulch, there's so many different things that we can use that will work great for your Tegus. But I'm going to tell you some cost-effective ways to get a great substrate in your enclosure that's bioactive ready. Okay, so what I like to use is sand, topsoil, and peat moss. You can find all of those things at most hardware stores. So, and when you're buying things from a hardware store, it's typically a lot cheaper than when you're buying it from a pet store. So that's what I like to do, and I mix it equal parts. So I'll get like a 3-gallon bucket. I'll do 3 gallons of sand, 3 gallons of peat moss, 3 gallons of topsoil, and put those in the enclosure, and I mix it all up. Those 3 ingredients combined together create a nice substrate that can hold your Tegu's burrows because it has the sand, but then the peat moss and the topsoil hold a lot of humidity, especially the peat moss has a lot of organic matter, and it's going to hold in moisture and make so where underneath the substrate the humidity is 100%. Occasionally, especially as I enter into winter like we are right now, I like to add mulch or leaves over the top of my soil substrate that I mixed up. So if you come look over here, we have this mulch on top. That's going to really trap the moisture in, and then underneath that mulch we have the soil substrate that I've mixed up. So we have a whole video on mixing up this substrate. If you want to see exactly what we use, I'll put the link down in the description for that substrate video that we made years ago, but it still works right now. So now that we've talked about substrate, let's go ahead and move into their hides, because that is very important for Tegus. They spend quite a bit of time, especially when they're small, inside of their hides tucked away. So I like to have 2 hides in the enclosure. We got one on the warm side and one on the cool side. Underneath both hides, so if we lift up this brick here, this brick is going to heat up during the day, and it's going to keep this area nice and warm. Underneath this hide, I have sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss stays nice and moist for a long time, and when I use sphagnum moss, I almost never have any shedding issues whatsoever. So huge plus. Definitely you want to put sphagnum moss anywhere your Tegu is sleeping. We come over to this side. Here is the cool hide. I like to keep my water near the cool hide or on top of it, because naturally, just as I replace their water every day, this side stays a little bit more moist than the other side, which helps it retain that cooler temperature. And then underneath this hide as well, it is full of sphagnum moss, as you can see. For hides, keep in mind that there's a lot of different ways that you can make hides. What I typically do at the beginning of the season is I just have cork bark right on top of the soil. when a Tegu goes into its hide, you want it to be nice and tight. That's another reason why the sphagnum moss works so well, is because it takes up all the space. And when they go inside of it, feeling that sphagnum moss all over their body creates so much security in their nervous system. Okay, but you don't have to use a brick. You don't have to use a hide like this. You can literally put cork bark right on the soil and they'll go underneath it and they'll love it. The reason why I'm using a brick and a bigger hide is because my tegus are a little bit bigger this time of year. They're not quite as small as a hatchling, so they would move the cork bark around and rearrange their enclosure. So I use heavier items later in the year. So, but just something to keep in mind. There's so many different ways that you can set this up. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing. Hopefully this is just giving you some ideas. There's a reason why everybody is watching this video, is so that they can be ready and prepared for their baby Tegu. And the last thing we're going to talk about is being ready with their diet. So the one thing I would recommend is just having some meat mix ready to go. So I have several videos on the channel. I'll link one down in the description that we made recently showing all the different things that you can put into a Tegu meat mix. This is going to be like chicken and turkey and eggs and blueberries and squash and just some salmon. You can just take all these different things, you can chop them up, you can use a grinder, you can mash it, whatever you need to do to get it all combined together. And that can kind of be the staple diet for your Tegu. Make sure you're using the appropriate vitamins and calcium powder. But again, I'll put a link to that video down below if you want more in-depth look at that. So a meat mix is a great way to have a staple diet ready for your Tegu before you get it. Another thing I would recommend is for people that want to have a dubia roaches, you can start a colony. That's quite easy to do, and you can have a endless source of insects that you can feed to your Tegus, and they'll love chasing the roaches around the enclosure. Another thing is superworms. They're really easy. You can just order them online and keep them in a tub and feed those off once a week or so. Grub pie is another over-the-counter insect diet that is amazing. It's made by Rapashi. I'll have a link to that down in the description. So there's so many different, that's one of the advantages to Tegus, is that they can eat so many different things. Being omnivores, it's an amazing thing that drew me to them, is because I find their diet, the variety that they can have, I find that to be very easy for me to give them. And the fact that variety is the healthiest way to feed them, I love that, because I can go to the store, get them different things every time I make their meat mix, and give them that variety and give them everything that they need within that. So for your baby Tegu, you're gonna want to make a meat mix for them. You're gonna want to feed them insects. So those are the two main things, food sources that you're gonna provide to your baby Tegus. Both of those things can be acquired before you get your Tegu. That way you are completely ready. Okay, and as a bonus tip, since you guys have made it to the end, if you've made it to the end of the video, you're pretty serious about getting a Tegu in your life, which they are incredible reptiles to own. I mean, they are my favorite reptile ever. They're incredible. But one other thing that you need to be ready for your baby Tegu is you need at least, this is the bare minimum, you need a plan of how you're going to get that adult enclosure, because it can happen before you realize it. One day you're going to come to your enclosure and you're going to be feeding your Tegu and you're going to go, holy, he has outgrown this enclosure. It's time for an upgrade. Don't wait till that time to start making your plans. Do it now. Go ahead and have a plan. If that's a grow tent, if that's an outdoor enclosure, if that's an 8x4 for inside of your house, whatever that is, have a plan and start working towards that, because they're going to grow quickly and you're going to want to see them thriving in a large enclosure. These are really smart lizards. These are active lizards. These are the best lizards, and you're going to want to put them in a nice large enclosure, so that because the reason why we get Tegus is because they enrich our lives, and they enrich our lives when their lives are enriched and we see them thriving and loving the space that they're in. That's where that true enrichment comes in, at least for me. And I believe if you're watching this video, you want to be prepared and you want to see your future Tegu thrive. So it's very important to have that plan already of how you're going to get it, or go ahead and get it and have it ready. That's even better. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, how to be ready for your baby Tegu. Hopefully this video helps you in your planning and preparing. If you are shopping for a Tegu, we sell them. Check out our website, link in the description, rosecityreptilestx.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.